let me take you on a journey to show you why describing systemic racism that way is a danger. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
There was in a certain state, they decided someone did a study and they said,
Mm-hmm.
let's look at outdoor suspension in the state of Florida. Okay. And they said, hey, black kids are suspended from school at a significantly higher rate than white kids.
Must be racism.
And it must be racism. And then they did a second study where they looked at the numbers and they said, we accounted for supposedly the specific behaviors that got the kids expelled from school, or not expelled, but outdoor suspended from school. And it doesn't match the disproportion of the fact that black kids are still being outdoorly suspended at higher rates than white kids for committing the same infractions. Excuse me.
Mm.
I had spicy beef jerky and it's getting all in my throat.
Oh my god.
Anyway, spicy deer beef jerky. But anyway,
Somehow I think that. Never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, you better.
Too far. Too far.
There you go. So anyway, so they looked at this and they said, okay, the answer, because of institutional racism, because a racial inequality exists, it must be racism. It must be that individual teachers themselves and individual principals themselves are racist.
Yep.
And they're just giving black kids harsher punishment than white kids. So what happens? Well, based on this belief that's not justified by anything, a bunch of people ran in the state of Florida saying they were going to abolish outdoor suspension because it was racist in their school district.
Mm-hmm.
And in some school districts, those people won. And outdoor suspension was banished in those school districts. It was removed. The only time you could actually outdoor suspend someone is if they committed an actual crime that required the police to be called. Okay? But then what happens? Suddenly, all these schools that were already in not great situations, that were in poor neighborhoods, that had a disproportionate amount of black students, started failing very quickly and all getting shut down left and right. And you say, wait a minute, what happened? I thought we got rid of the racist outdoor suspension policy. Well, you see, there was another factor the woke warriors didn't consider.
What was the real reason?
The reason, it turns out, that black kids were suspended disproportionately from school compared to white students was because there's a disproportionate amount of black students in far poorer schools. And far poorer schools don't have the money for indoor suspension and detention and other forms of behavioral management programs that the richer schools that had more white kids had available to them.
Are you telling me it was poverty and not racism?
So wait a minute. This is why this shit is fucking stupid. Because based on this idiotic thinking of simplifying something down to quote unquote racism and thinking that it has to do with individual racist behavior as opposed to, you know, the longer systemic history of all that shit. Okay. Because it always gets conflated into individual racist behavior, which is what they always fucking do. Okay. They took away the only behavioral options that these schools had available to them because they could no longer since the poor schools could no longer give people outdoor suspension or kids outdoor suspension. If a kid was acting up in class, there was literally nothing they could do about it.
Oh my God.
They would send the kid to the office, and then the office just yells at them and sends them right back in the classroom. And if you've ever been in a classroom where kids are acting up, you know no one's fucking learning shit because the teacher's yelling at them the whole time. So now, waves and waves of poor schools that are disproportionately attended to by black students are all closing down. Because woke fucking morons looked at outcomes and assumed it was racism.
These guys.
So that's the danger of this idiotic fucking narrative of just saying, well, if we bake into the definition of systemic racism that any outcome is automatically racist, even stupider people will then conflate that because the definitions are so fucking tricky and it confuses everyone. Stupider people will then conflate that to think that means that there's individual racial bias going on that's creating the racial discrimination in the first place. And they're going to implement a change, which could very well make everything fucking worse.
Did they? So the white schools still had indoor suspension available to them? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. In the
So they still had a suspension option.
yes. So for them,
Could they just
the
have brought
richer,
back like caning or something like that and not gone
see
like
that,
the
but that was the
suspension route?
problem. Okay, because the politicians,
What
they
about
don't, as
just
you,
one of those big paddles that they hang up in front of the class?
right, exactly. As you know, the politicians all do this shit cynically. They don't really care about fixing the problem.
They don't care. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So they'll go out and they'll say and they'll campaign on, look how not racist I am. I'm getting rid of this racist institution.
Yes.
But no one wants to put up more money to provide those schools
With indoor
you know,
suspension options.
with indoor suspension and other disciplinary procedures that they would be required to replace them with if they got rid of outdoor suspension. And the politicians don't care because the voters don't care because they don't want to spend money on this shit.
Nobody noticed that outdoor suspension and indoor suspension are virtually the same, just the location.
Yeah.
Nobody
They didn't think
noticed
about that.
Huh.
But that's the problem with all these studies because there's always going to be some variable you didn't think about. And
Yeah.
It's not very apparent to you. Like I wouldn't know. Why would I know that? I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher in a poor school, so I wouldn't think like, oh, there's only outdoor suspension.
Well, the kids would know. If you asked the kids, they would know
but you
immediately.
think the woke warriors doing these studies are fucking talking to any of these people?
Well, just let the kids vote, and then they would know not to vote for that.
Okay. That's a good segue.